Boasting over 11 million gallons of water and thousands of animals, the Georgia Aquarium is one feat of engineering. However, just because it's one of the world's biggest doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Join me on a journey as we explore the aquatic life that the aquarium holds and how it's all done and executed in a way to help make the best of the guest and animal experience. When it comes to this aquarium, the majority of the attractions are all centered around one main hub, with these being then spread out around different themed areas, some of which range across multiple levels, which is a nice touch, and I wish most theme parks and aquariums would include a multiple layer experience, as this several stories experience not only allows for more immersive action and exploratory areas of it, but also helps alleviate some of the crowds by helping split them up. These themed areas are spread across several areas around the aquarium, but are all centered around the main hub, which is an open-air atrium. However, while this is aesthetically pleasing, there is one major downside to this, and this is the overall lines trying to get into it, as the overall aquarium, while pretty, is logistically a nightmare to travel around, with several lines and areas often intersecting, causing more crowding issues even if the aquarium was less busy. For instance, if you're trying to get from one side of the area into the next themed area across the way, you can go a variety of different routes and directions, asking every other one of those guests trying to get there. While I do love the design aspect of this and having different separate themed areas that are all centered around one pretty atrium, I really wish they took a better route in designing it so that you can either walk on one continual path that goes into each portal area, or have a more centered area in the middle of the atrium that forces guests to go around it in one single or double direction. That way, there is less crowding and it's easier to go get to one direction over the other and go to your designated area that you want to explore. For instance, this method is being explored in Epic Universe, where there's a series of ponds and gardens around the area, forcing guests to walk around it, with some areas where you can go right across to help better control the crowd flow of the area. Another downside of how the atrium was set up is that there are several lines that go and reach out into the atrium due to some logistical problems and placements that further make the issue of trying to go to the different areas even worse. For instance, the guest relations line backs up into the aquarium atrium, with it being a part of it, which not only hurts it, but also is farther hurted by it being located right next door to the bathrooms, which already were extremely small compared to other restrooms around theme parks and parks in general. As due to this, there's often a backup, including for the male restrooms, which often rarely happens. In addition to this, one of these themed areas exits into this bathroom area where guests are already waiting in line, which is then next to the guest relations, causing one chaotic mess. That said, the overall experience of these areas is really pretty, with some often using projections mapping as well as screens around the area to really enhance it, but also add a lot of kinetic energy to it. Furthermore, the individual themed area of the experience was done exceptionally well, not only immersing you in these themed areas, but also continuing to the individual aquarium attractions for the individual animals, providing them a themed habitat that is like their home. That said though, the aquarium is at least trying to make an effort to improve upon it, as there is a time slot requirement area to enter into the aquarium itself, which helps disperse when crowds enter it to help make it feel not as bad. That said, it was still really crowded inside it, at least at certain parts, which is really interesting because at other areas of the aquarium, even though going into it was super crowded, there was sections of the area that were less crowded inside of it, which could be due to the overall layout of it, forcing more squeeze points, which results in more congestion, even though there doesn't necessarily need to be that much congestion. Another downside of such reservation systems is that there's also a reservation system to go watch the shows, as you cannot really see much of these animals in these shows as well as the show as a whole without getting one of these slots that often fill up relatively quickly. While I was unable to go see the shows this time around, one thing they note about them that is especially interesting considering the rest of the aquarium does seem to do a good job of conservation is that the show itself does not have a conservative message to it that deals with nature or preserving the environment, but rather just the animals doing stunts to popular songs. Which is extremely odd and honestly felt out of place in the aquarium, as well as cites how such shows, the show that was executed, made you wonder why the dolphins were doing those things, other to just have you look in amazement at their individual stunts that they're doing, which I'm not even kidding when I say the aquarium calls enrichment activities. Building upon this, one area that I would like to tackle that focuses on zoos and aquariums as a whole is the environmental and ethical issue to it, as there is a divide about whether they should exist or not, with most guests, based on my survey sent out on X, showing approval of such zoos and aquariums. However, not all zoos and aquariums do it to the extent that certain companies like the Georgia Aquarium and Disney do, as well there is some ethical issue of if such a thing is wrong to observe these animals in a tank and being held in captivity. One good aspect of the aquariums is that they provide an area for them to live and prosper away from prey, with some animals even being endangered, helping preserve them while also teaching guests about the animals as a whole. Likewise, such endangered species can also continue to grow under the zoo's watch, as we have seen numerous times across several aquariums and zoos, with Disney's Animal Kingdom continuing to grow the number of endangered species that exist in the world. Furthermore, they also provide animals, something that the Georgia Aquarium did fairly well, a vast array of area to go live and prosper, often and sometimes not even feeling like an enclosure itself. Examples like this are definitely the great way to go when it comes to giving animals in zoos, as it helps make the best of both worlds, providing them with an exhibit that doesn't necessarily feel like captivity, while also giving guests the opportunity to go and observe them in an area that looks like their natural habitat. However, not all zoos and aquariums treat their animals such ways, with some often degrading the overall seeming in their aquarium where it is just a tank, and not providing them the greatest benefits and enrichment activities as well, sometimes even leaving them malnourished and subject to harm. These types of zoos and aquariums should not be allowed to exist, but unfortunately are due to the human aspect draw of wanting to see these animals that they wouldn't typically otherwise get to see. And it is definitely heartbreaking seeing cases like this. As well, there's humans that care and want to see these animals. It is sad seeing some of the animals in such a state where they would have been better off in the wild. Furthermore, lots of these animals were born and raised in captivity, and those that do eventually get to escape captivity, which is often typically rare, often lead to a less successful life in the wild, having trouble reacclimating to the wild nature and its factors of it. For instance, Kiko, the star of Free Willy, showed a successfully rehabilitated animal released back into the wild, as his killer whale found his home waters in Iceland. Unfortunately though, he did later die due to pneumonia in Norway. Even with his successful acclimation for the most part, Kiko did experience lots of troubles with his past being held in captivity, often being very friendly towards any human contact that he would come across. A clear sign that while we gave him a chance, he often was not able to go and live the life of a wild animal, permanently being tainted by his life in captivity. Going back to the Georgia Aquarium, to help carry on the theming, not only are there animals for you to look at and explore, but there's also general information about the individual aquarium attractions, providing you information on the animals inside of it, which can help spread the message of conservation. As with all aquariums and zoos, there is the ethical issue of is such an attraction right? As while it was sad to see some of these animals being held in captivity in some environments that were deemed a little small to my standards, some of the other aquarium attractions did seem to have a larger space for the animals. That said, all the animals did seem to have a proper care and routine spent towards them, helping make sure they at least spent some enrichment activities, some of which were incorporated into a multitude of the exhibits to help keep them active in as much of that wild feeling as possible. Likewise, the aquarium itself was very open about how it treats and cares for its animals, with at one point giving guests a view into the backstage look at the top of one of the biggest aquariums that they have. So while it is sad to see some of the animals in captivity, overall I felt like the aquarium did a good job at caring for them, which one of the first and most important things about it that helps make the issue less concerning, as well as teaching guests about the individual animals. Make sure they're not just an item of show, but something that you can learn about and explore if you want to, helping make more of a conservation effort into the future and potentially encouraging young guests to go and explore these routes as their own career. When it came to the observing of the animals, I would say that the aquarium did a great job of providing guests with a variety of different areas to look at them and get different perspectives on the exhibit. Furthermore, it was also beneficial to see some of the different areas being done in a way that allowed guests to stay and linger there if they wanted to, and not be forced to continue on their journey until they were ready. Likewise, each individual exhibit did seem to have a great job of explaining one massive area that was a real wow factor for guests, with individual smaller wow factors along the route to help make for an overall great experience when exploring them, helping give guests a great exploratory feel as well as a more impressive look in it at the same time. Another great benefit of these themed areas was that it gives you a great look into the overall life of the whole ocean ecosystem and not just highlighting the animals, as whether it be the dead bones of a whale resting on the ocean floor and how it impacts the overall economic environment of the aquarium and the ocean, or the overall look and feel of individual corals or the plant life of it. The aquarium did a great job of educating you on this and helping you understand more of the ocean as a whole and all the creatures and plant life that it entails to help make it a wonderful environment, something that most guests don't get to experience in the wild. Taking all this into account, I do feel like the aquarium does a great job of educating as well as giving the animals the care that they deserve to provide a well-themed and immersive environment to make the overall experience and education of guests not only memorable but informative as well. When it comes to how well this translates into value, we should look at the price of the aquarium tickets, with these starting at $39.99. However, there are some discounts that you can get to help make this price lower, like a group discount rate, which brought the individual ticket price down to $18 before tax. Regardless of whether you're paying this rate or the other, I do feel like the aquarium does a great job on delivering on its promise, providing not only animal exhibits and experiences for you to learn about and observe, but also doing so in a way that was highly themed and really a nice touch compared to some other aquariums which mostly just have the animals in glass boxes for you to look at. That said, I do feel like the aquarium should almost raise their prices though, as it was extremely crowded, and while some of these issues could have just been due to the logistics of the area, having an increased price would be a great way to help reduce the overall amount of guests, but also potentially increasing your revenue as a result to help make an overall more enjoyable experience as you're not shoving between crowds and being shoulder to shoulder trying to get to your next themed area. Likewise, a different approach that some aquariums take is more of a path that will take you wandering around the aquarium through a series of paths that take you through each individual experience in one single file line. This would honestly be more preferred as there is less crowding issues as a result of this. Another area of value that I wanted to talk about is the overall food experience, as the food itself was average at best, and furthermore was done at a drastically increased price than what it should have been, especially given the proportion as well as the execution of that proportion not being the greatest, and could drastically be improved, as my teriyaki and beef meal with odd water cost $25. That said, I did appreciate how it was relatively fast and speedy, as well as the great views that it gave you from the seating area. In the end, taking a look back at the Georgia Aquarium as a whole, I would say it is a great addition to the Atlanta area and a great way to immerse and educate guests about the different areas of the ocean's ecosystem, as well as allowing them to learn and explore it in a variety of different options to help make for a memorable and value justified experience.